Jake Harrison stood on the bridge of the Terra Nova and watched the massive space station grow larger on the main screen. The station was bigger than anything humans had ever built. It looked like a giant metal city floating in the darkness of space. Lights blinked across its surface like stars, and ships moved around it like tiny insects. "Sir, we're getting a signal from the station," said Lieutenant Danny Cross from his position at the communications console. His voice was steady, but Jake could hear the nervousness underneath. "Put it on speaker," Jake ordered. He straightened his uniform and took a deep breath. This was the moment humanity had been waiting for. After 50 years of traveling between the stars alone, they were finally going to meet the rulers of the galaxy. A cold voice filled the bridge. "Human vessel, you are cleared to dock at Bay 7. You will be met by security forces and escorted to the council chambers. Do not deviate from your assigned path." The connection ended without waiting for a response. Jake frowned. He had expected a warmer welcome. Dr. Lisa Morgan stepped up beside him. She was a tall woman with short brown hair and intelligent eyes. As Earth's best expert on alien life, she had spent years preparing for this moment. "Not very friendly, are they?" she said quietly. "Maybe they're just being careful," Jake replied, but he didn't sound convinced. "Sam, what's your assessment?" "Lieutenant." Colonel Sam Burke looked up from his security station. He was a big man with graying hair and scars on his hands from years of military service. "I don't like it, sir. No welcoming committee, no ceremony, just orders. They're treating us like prisoners, not guests." Jake nodded slowly. He had the same feeling, but they had come too far to turn back now. "Everyone stay alert. We're representing all of humanity here. Let's make sure we do it right." The docking process took an hour. The Terra Nova's engines hummed as they maneuvered into the assigned bay. Through the windows, Jake could see alien ships of all shapes and sizes. Some looked like twisted metal sculptures, others glowed with strange energy. A few were so strange that he couldn't even figure out which end was the front. When the docking clamps engaged with a loud clang, Jake felt his stomach tighten. There was no going back now. He turned to address his crew. "Remember, we're here to negotiate trade agreements and establish diplomatic relations. We're not looking for trouble, but we're not going to let them push us around either. Earth sent us here as equals, and that's how we're going to act." The airlock hissed open, and Jake got his first look at the aliens who ran the galaxy. 6 figures waited for them in the corridor beyond. 3 were tall and thin, with scaly green skin and yellow eyes. They wore elaborate robes covered in strange symbols. These had to be the Zephyrians, the reptilian race that led the Galactic. Council dot next to them stood 2 creatures that looked like giant insects. They had 4 arms each, and their heads were covered in what looked like black armor. Their eyes were compound, like a fly's, and they clicked their mandibles together as they spoke in a language that sounded like breaking glass. Jake recognized them as the Kethvar from the briefing files. The last alien was the strangest of all. It looked like a human-shaped outline filled with swirling blue and white light. No face, no solid body, just energy held together in a roughly human form. This was one of the Luminari, beings made of pure energy who were said to be the wisest race in the galaxy. The lead Zephyrian stepped forward. His yellow eyes looked Jake up and down like he was examining a piece of meat. "I am High Chancellor Vexthil. You are the human leader?" "Commander Jake Harrison, representing the United Earth Government," Jake replied, extending his hand. The Zephyrian looked at the offered hand with disgust and didn't take it. "Follow," Vexthil said, turning away. "The council will see you now." They walked through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The walls were covered in murals showing the history of the galaxy. Jake saw images of great battles, the founding of the council, and the subjugation of dozens of different species. He noticed that in every picture, the same 3 races were always on top. Impressive, isn't it? Vexthal said, noticing Jake's interest. 2,000 years of peace and order. The Council has brought civilization to over 400 species. Before us, it was only chaos and war. What happened to the species that didn't want to join? Dr. Morgan asked. Vexthal's mouth curved into what might have been a smile. They learned to want it. The council chambers were enormous. The ceiling disappeared into darkness high above, and the walls were covered with screens showing star maps and data streams. At the center of the room was a raised platform with 3 throne-like chairs. Representatives from dozens of species sat in smaller chairs, arranged in circles around the platform. The 3 council leaders took their seats. Vexthal sat in the center, with a Kefar on his left and a Luminari on his right. The insect beings. Name was Hive Mind Zaktal, and when it spoke, Jake could hear the voices of thousands of its kind speaking in unison. Humans, Zaktal said, you have traveled far to reach us. We have been watching your species for some time. You are young, aggressive, and unpredictable. These are dangerous qualities. The Luminari, who called itself Prime Consciousness Luxandra, spoke in a voice that sounded like music. Your species has developed faster than any we have encountered. In less than 200 years, you have gone from primitive agriculture to interstellar travel. This concerns us. Jake stepped forward. We come in peace. We want to establish trade relations and learn from the wisdom of the Council. Humanity has much to offer the galaxy. Offer? Vexthal laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the chamber. What could a species that has barely left its home system offer to those who have ruled the galaxy for millennia? Dr. Morgan moved to stand beside Jake. We have made significant advances in medicine, engineering, and quantum physics. Our scientists have developed new forms of energy production and silence. Zaktal's voice boomed. You will speak only when spoken to. The Council will determine what use your species may have. Jake felt his jaw clench. He had expected some condescension, but this was outright hostility. We didn't come here to be insulted. We came as representatives of a sovereign species seeking equal treatment. The chamber fell silent. Even the background hum of the station's system seemed to fade. The 3 council leaders exchanged looks that Jake couldn't interpret. Equal treatment? Vexthal said slowly. You think you are equal to us? You think your tiny species, confined to one small world, is equal to civilizations that span thousands of star systems? We think all intelligent species deserve respect, Jake replied firmly, and we won't accept anything less. Luxandra S energy form pulsed brighter. Your arrogance is remarkable. Most species come before us with humility, grateful for whatever place we might grant them. You come making demands. We come with hope for friendship, Jake said. But we won't be anyone's servants. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Jake could see Sam Burke's hand moving slowly toward his weapon. The security guards around the chamber were also getting ready for trouble. Vexthal stood up from his throne. The Council will deliberate on your ... request. You will be escorted to quarters where you will wait for our decision. Guards, take them away. As they were led out of the chamber, Jake caught a glimpse of the 3 council leaders huddled together, speaking in urgent whispers. Their body language made it clear that humanity's arrival had caused more concern than they wanted to admit. Quarters they were given were comfortable, but clearly a prison. There were no locks on the doors, but Jake could see armed guards in the corridor outside. The windows looked out onto the docking bay, where the Terra Nova sat surrounded by alien security vessels. Well, that went better than expected, Sam said dryly. Jake walked to the window and stared out at his ship. Something was wrong here. The council's reaction wasn't just arrogance. It was fear. They were afraid of humanity, and that made them dangerous. Get some rest, he told his crew. I have a feeling we're going to need it. 3 days passed in the prison quarters. Jake Harrison paced back and forth like a caged animal. The guards brought them food and water, but no one would answer their questions. The waiting was driving everyone crazy. Sam Burke sat at the small table in the center of the room, studying readings on his portable scanner. He kept it hidden under his jacket whenever the guards came by. His face was grim as he watched the numbers change on the screen. Jake, you need to see this, Sam said quietly. Jake walked over and looked at the scanner. The device was picking up energy signatures from all around the station. What am I looking at? Ship movements, lots of them. The council has been calling in their fleet for the past 2 days. I count at least 300 vessels in the area now, and more are arriving every hour. Dr. Lisa Morgan looked up from her own work. She had been trying to analyze the alien technology they had seen, but the implications of Sam's discovery made her stomach turn. They're preparing for war. But with who? Jake asked, though he already knew the answer. With us, Sam replied. Or more specifically, with Earth. This whole diplomatic meeting was a trap from the beginning. Jake felt anger building in his chest. They invited us here just to eliminate us? Think about it, Lisa said. We showed them our technology, our capabilities, our location. They got everything they needed to know about humanity's defenses. Now they're planning to use that information against us. Sam's scanner beeped again. More ships just jumped into the system. These are big ones, battleships. The council isn't taking any chances. Jake walked to the window and stared out at the Terra Nova. His ship looked so small compared to the alien vessels surrounding it. We have to warn Earth somehow. The communication array is blocked, Sam said. They're jamming all our signals. Earth doesn't even know we're in trouble. On the 4th day, the guards came for them. There were more guards this time, and they carried weapons that hummed with energy. The lead guard was a Zephyrin, with scars across his face. The council will see you now, he said in broken English. You will come quietly, or we will drag you. They had no choice but to follow. The corridors were filled with aliens now, representatives from dozens of species had come to watch whatever was about to happen. Jake noticed that most of them looked excited, like they were going to see a show. The council chambers had been transformed. The space was now filled with floating cameras and recording devices. Screens showed the proceedings being broadcast across the galaxy. This wasn't going to be a private meeting. It was going to be a public spectacle. The 3 council leaders sat on their thrones, looking down at the humans like judges at a trial. Vexthal stood up, and his voice boomed through the chamber. Citizens of the galaxy, we gathered today to address a threat to our peaceful civilization. The species called humans has revealed itself to be dangerous and unpredictable. They refuse to accept the wisdom of the council and make demands as if they were our equals. Jake stepped forward. We came here in peace. We only asked for fair treatment and the chance to trade with other species. That's not a threat. That's diplomacy. Diplomacy? Hive Mind Zaktal's 1,000 voices spoke as one. You call it diplomacy when you demand equal status with races that have ruled the galaxy for millennia? You call it diplomacy when you threaten our established order? We never threatened anyone, Lisa said. We shared our scientific knowledge freely. We showed you our medical advances that could help millions of people across the galaxy. Prime consciousness Lux Andra S energy form pulsed. With dark colors, your rapid advancement is itself a threat. No species should develop technology so quickly. It suggests a dangerous lack of stability and wisdom. Jake realized what was happening. You're not afraid of what we might do. You're afraid of what we represent. You're afraid that other species will see that they don't need the Council to survive and prosper. The chamber erupted in angry voices from the alien representatives. Some shouted in languages Jake couldn't understand, but the meaning was clear. They were calling for blood. Vexthul raised his hand for silence. The human speaks truly. They are indeed a threat to our way of life, a threat to the peace and order we have maintained for 2,000 years. This is why the Council has reached its decision. Jake felt his blood turn cold. Decision? The human species will be contained. Your home world will surrender immediately and dismantle all military vessels. Your technology will be placed under Council control. Your people will be relocated to designated worlds where they can be properly supervised. And if we refuse? Jake asked, though he already knew the answer. Then your species will be eliminated, Vexthul said simply, starting with you. Sam. Burke's hand moved toward his weapon, but there were too many guards. Energy rifles were already pointed at them from every direction. You can't do this, Lisa pleaded. We haven't done anything wrong. We came here seeking friendship. You came here spreading chaos, Zaktal replied. Your very existence threatens the stability of our civilization. The Council cannot allow such a threat to continue. Jake looked around the chamber at the faces of dozens of alien species. Some looked uncomfortable, but most seemed to agree with the Council's decision. Fear was stronger than justice here. The sentence will be carried out immediately, Vexthul announced. Let all species see what happens to those who defy the Council's authority. Guards grabbed Jake's arms and dragged him to the center of the chamber. A device rose from the floor, a tall metal pole with energy conduits running along its length. Jake had never seen anything like it, but he knew what it was for. This is murder, he said loudly, making sure his voice carried to all the cameras. We came in peace, and you're executing us for it. The galaxy will remember this. The galaxy will remember that the Council protects them from dangerous species, Vexthul replied. Your death will serve as a warning to others who might think to challenge our authority. They strapped Jake to the device. Energy began to build in the conduits, making the air hum with power. Jake looked at his crew, at Sam with his jaw clenched in rage, at Lisa with tears in her eyes. He thought about Earth, about the billions of people who had no idea what was about to happen to them. Tell them, Jake shouted to the cameras, tell them that humanity will not be slaves. Tell them that we came in peace, but we will not go quietly into the night. Vexthul nodded to the executioner. Activate the device. The energy built to a crescendo. Jake felt the power washing over him, tearing at his molecular structure. The pain was beyond description, but he refused to scream. He would not give them the satisfaction. For Earth, he whispered, and then the energy consumed him. The chamber fell silent as Jake Harrison's body disintegrated into nothing. The message was clear. This was the fate of anyone who dared to challenge the Galactic Council. But the Council had made a fatal mistake. They had broadcast Jake's execution across the galaxy, including to the automated emergency beacons hidden in the Terra Nova systems. The signal was already racing through hyperspace toward Earth, carrying news of humanity's greatest tragedy. Sam Burke watched his commander die and felt something break inside him. The Council thought they had eliminated a threat, but they had only created a much bigger one. They had just declared war on humanity, and they had no idea what they had unleashed. Lisa Morgan closed her eyes and whispered a prayer for Jake's soul. She also prayed for the Council members, because when Earth learned what had happened here, there would be no mercy for anyone involved. The execution was over, but the real story was just beginning. The Council had killed a diplomat, but they had also killed any hope for peace between humanity and the galaxy. Now there would be only war, and humanity would make sure the galaxy never forgot the price of crossing them. As the cameras stopped recording, and the alien representatives began to file out of the chamber. None of them realized that they had just witnessed the beginning of the end of their civilization. A galactic council had ruled for 2,000 years, but their reign was about to come to a very violent end. The emergency signal reached Earth 48 hours after Jake Harrison's execution. The message was short but devastating. Council hostile. Jake executed. Preparing for war. Send help. President Helen Carter stood in the war room deep beneath the White House, surrounded by Earth's top military leaders. The room was filled with screens showing star maps, fleet positions, and intelligence reports. The atmosphere was tense and angry. How many ships do we have ready for combat? President Carter asked. Admiral Frank Stone looked up from his tablet. His daughter Amy was still trapped on the alien station, and his face showed the rage he felt. 200 ships are fully operational. Another 300 are in various stages of construction. Most of them are equipped with standard plasma weapons and energy shields. That won't be enough, said Dr. Richard Gray, Earth's leading weapons scientist. He was a thin man with wild hair and excited eyes. The Council has thousands of ships. Our conventional weapons are no match for their technology. General Paul Mitchell, head of Earth's military forces, slammed his fist on the table. Then what do you suggest? We can't let them get away with murdering our people. Dr. Gray smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. We don't use conventional weapons. We use something they've never seen before. He activated a holographic display that showed complex equations and weapon schematics. For the past 10 years, my team has been working on military applications for quantum technology. We've developed something that makes our old weapons look like toys. Explain, President Carter said. Quantum antimatter weapons, Dr. Gray said. They work by disrupting the fundamental forces that hold matter together. No shield can stop them because they don't actually hit the shield. They make it stop existing. Admiral Stone leaned forward. How powerful are we talking about? 1 of these weapons can destroy a ship the size of a space station. A full barrage can wipe out an entire fleet. And the best part is, they're completely invisible to conventional sensors until they hit their target. Chief Engineer Tony Wells entered, the room carrying a metal briefcase. He was a practical man who had spent his career building things that worked. I've been testing the prototypes. They exceed all expectations. The energy release is incredible. He opened the briefcase to reveal a device no bigger than a football. This single warhead contains enough destructive power to level a city. We can fit dozens of them on each ship. President Carter studied the weapon. How long to retrofit our fleet? 3 weeks for the first 100 ships, Tony replied. 2 months for the full fleet. But we can start with what we have and build more as we go. General Mitchell looked skeptical. What about their defenses? The Council has been fighting wars for thousands of years. They must have some way to counter. New weapons. Dr. Gray shook his head. That's their weakness. They've been using the same technology for so long that they've become complacent. They think they know everything about warfare. This will be completely outside their experience. Captain Nicole Brooks entered the room. She was young for her rank, but her record spoke for itself. I've been analyzing the intelligence from the Terra Nova. The Council's tactics are predictable. They rely on overwhelming numbers and superior technology, but they don't adapt quickly to new threats. You think we can win? President Carter asked. I think we can do more than win, Nicole replied. I think we can end this permanently. Admiral Stone nodded grimly. What's our strategy? Captain Brooks activated another display showing the galaxies. Major star systems. We hit them everywhere at once. Not just military targets, but their government centers, their shipyards, their communication hubs. We make sure they can't coordinate a response. That's a lot of targets, General Mitchell. said, "Are we sure we have enough ships?" "We don't need to occupy territory," Nicole explained. "We just need to destroy their ability to function as a civilization. With these new weapons, a single ship can take out an entire fleet." Dr. Elena Price, head of Earth's intelligence services, spoke up. "We've been monitoring alien communications since the first contact. I can provide exact locations for every major council facility." She brought up a detailed map of council space. They have 17 major military bases, 43 administrative centers, and over 100 shipyards. If we hit them all simultaneously, their entire power structure will collapse. President Carter walked to the window and stared out at the city below. Millions of people were going about their normal lives, unaware that humanity was about to go to war with the entire galaxy. "What about the other species?" she asked. "The ones that aren't part of the council? We give them, choice," Admiral Stone said coldly. "Join us or be destroyed with the council. Anyone who supported Jake's execution pays the price." Captain Brooks nodded. "We broadcast a message to every species in the galaxy. Those who surrender immediately will be spared. Those who resist will be eliminated." Dr. Price pulled up intelligence. Files on the major alien species. Most of them are too weak to fight us anyway. They've been depending on the council for protection for so long that they've forgotten how to defend themselves. "What about civilian casualties?" General Mitchell asked. The room fell silent. Everyone knew that a war of this scale would kill billions of innocent people. But they also knew that the council had made it clear they intended to enslave or destroy humanity. President Carter turned back to face the room. "The council chose this path when they executed Jake Harrison. They wanted to make an example of us. Instead, we're going to make an example of them." She walked to the communications console and activated the fleet-wide broadcast system. "This is President Carter speaking to all Earth forces. The Galactic Council has declared war on humanity by executing our diplomatic envoy. This act of barbarism will not go unpunished." Her voice carried across the solar system to every human ship and station. "We will respond with overwhelming force. We will show the galaxy that humanity is not a species to be trifled with. We will avenge Jake Harrison and ensure that no alien power ever again threatens our people." The response was immediate. Across the solar system, construction crews began working around the clock to retrofit ships with the new weapons. Military personnel reported for duty in record numbers. The entire human race was mobilizing for war. Tony Wells coordinated the weapons installation while Dr. Gray supervised the final testing. The quantum antimatter devices performed flawlessly, exceeding even their most optimistic projections. Lieutenant Danny Cross was promoted to commander and given charge of the communication systems. His job was to ensure that every human ship could coordinate their attacks perfectly. Lieutenant Kate Rivers became the lead navigation officer for the entire fleet. Her expertise in hyperspace travel would be crucial for the simultaneous strikes. Across the galaxy within 2 weeks, the first wave of ships was ready. Captain Brooks stood on the bridge of the U.S. Retribution, the new flagship of humanity's war fleet. The ship was sleek and deadly, bristling with weapons that could destroy entire civilizations. "All ships report ready," Commander Cross announced. "Navigation systems are optimal," Lieutenant Rivers added. "We can reach any target in council space within 6 hours." Captain Brooks looked at the tactical display showing the positions of 500 human warships. Each one was equipped with enough firepower to level a planet. The council had wanted to see humanity's true capabilities. They were about to get their wish. "Signal the fleet," she ordered. "Today, we show the galaxy what happens when you murder a human diplomat. Today, we avenge Jake Harrison. Today, we end the Galactic Council forever." The war fleet jumped into hyperspace, carrying humanity's wrath toward an unsuspecting galaxy. The Council had ruled for 2,000 years, but their reign was about to end in fire and destruction. The real war was just beginning. The human fleet appeared in 17 star systems at exactly the same time. The Council forces had no warning. One moment their sensors showed empty space. The next moment 500 human warships materialized out of hyperspace. Captain Nicole Brooks stood on the bridge of the UE's Retribution as they dropped out of hyperspace near Nexus Prime. The massive station looked exactly the same as when Jake Harrison had died there 3 weeks ago. Soon it would be nothing but debris. Target acquired, Lieutenant Kate Rivers reported from her navigation station. All human ships are in position. Enemy forces? Captain Brooks asked. Commander Danny Cross checked his sensors. 50 Council ships around the station. They're powering up weapons and moving to intercept. Captain Brooks smiled coldly. Let them come. All ships, prepare quantum antimatter weapons. Target the station first, then the ships. The Council forces moved toward the human fleet in their traditional formation. They had used the same tactics for thousands of years and saw no reason to change now. Their ships were larger and more numerous. They expected an easy victory. The lead Council ship, a massive Zephyrian dreadnought, opened fire with its plasma cannons. The bright energy beams streaked across space toward the human ships. The Council commanders watched confidently. As their weapons approached their targets, the plasma beams struck the human ships and simply disappeared. The quantum fields around the human vessels absorbed the energy completely, leaving the ships undamaged. Impossible, hissed the Zephyrian commander. Our weapons are the most powerful in the galaxy. Return fire, Captain Brooks ordered. The UES Retribution fired a single quantum antimatter torpedo. The weapon was invisible to the Council's sensors until it struck the dreadnought's hull. The massive ship simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there. The next moment there was nothing but empty space. The remaining Council ships stopped moving. Their commanders stared at their sensors in disbelief. The most powerful ship in their fleet had been destroyed by a weapon they couldn't even detect. All ships open fire, Captain Brooks commanded. The human fleet unleashed hell. Quantum antimatter weapons streaked toward every Council ship in range. The alien vessels had no defense against weapons that attacked. The fundamental forces of matter itself. One by one, the Council ships vanished. Some tried to run, but the human weapons were faster. Others tried to fight, but their attacks were useless against the quantum shields. Within 10 minutes, the entire Council fleet was destroyed. Target the station, Captain Brooks ordered. The UES Retribution fired a full barrage of quantum antimatter torpedoes at Nexus Prime. The massive station, which had stood for over 1,000 years, disintegrated in seconds. The explosion was so bright that it could be seen from nearby star systems. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. In the Zephyrian home system, Admiral Frank Stone led the assault on their capital world. The proud reptilian race had ruled the Council for centuries, but their entire space fleet was destroyed in less than an hour. This is for my daughter, Admiral Stone said as he watched the Zephyrian homeworld burn. In the Kethver systems, the insectoid hive minds found their collective consciousness shattered as their hive ships were destroyed faster than they could adapt. The species that had prided itself on perfect coordination was reduced to chaos in minutes. The Luminari tried to escape by dispersing their energy forms across multiple dimensions, but the quantum antimatter weapons followed them everywhere. The beings of pure energy found themselves trapped and helpless against human technology. Back at Nexus Prime, Captain Brooks received reports from across the galaxy. All primary targets destroyed, Commander Cross reported. Council resistance is collapsing everywhere. What about our people? Captain Brooks asked. Lieutenant Rivers checked her communications. Dr. Lisa Morgan and the other prisoners were rescued from the detention center before we destroyed the station. They're all safe. Sam Burke appeared on the communication screen. He looked older and harder than before, but his eyes burned with satisfaction. The council is finished, Nicole. Every major facility has been destroyed. Their fleet is gone. Their government is gone. It's over. Captain Brooks nodded. What about the other species? The ones that supported the council? Most of them are surrendering, Sam replied. The few that tried to fight have been eliminated. The galaxy knows that humanity is in charge now. Across the galaxy, the surviving alien species watched in horror as their former masters were destroyed. The council that had ruled for 2,000 years was gone, wiped out in a single day by the species they had tried to eliminate. On the planet, Zarian, the lizard-like Zarians huddled in their cities as human ships appeared in their skies. They had cheered when Jake Harrison was executed. Now they waited in terror for humanity's judgment. The human fleet commander's voice echoed through their communication systems. People of Zarian, you supported the council's decision to execute our diplomat. You celebrated his death. Now you will face the consequences. The Zarians begged for mercy, but the human response was swift and final. Their military was destroyed in minutes. Their government centers were reduced to rubble. Those who had supported the council's actions were eliminated. Similar scenes played out on dozens of worlds. The aquatic Delphians, who had provided ships for the council fleet, watched their underwater cities boil away under human weapons. The crystalline shard people, who had manufactured weapons for the council, found their entire civilization reduced to dust, but not all species shared the same fate. The Wanderers, a nomadic race that had stayed neutral during the diplomatic crisis, received a different message from the humans. You did not support the council's actions, the human commander told them. You will be spared. Submit to human authority, and you will be protected. The Wanderers accepted immediately. They had seen what happened to species that opposed humanity. They had no desire to share that fate. Within 72 hours, the war was over. The Galactic Council was extinct. Their 3 founding species were gone. Their vast empire was in ruins. Hundreds of billions of aliens were dead or homeless. Captain Brooks stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, looking out at the debris field that had once been Nexus Prime. The station where Jake Harrison had died was now nothing but scattered atoms drifting in space. Signal Earth, she ordered. Tell them that the mission is complete. The council is destroyed. Jake Harrison has been avenged. The message traveled across the galaxy, reaching every human ship and station. On Earth, President Helen Carter received the news with grim satisfaction. The species that had murdered their diplomat was gone. The threat to humanity was eliminated, but the war's end was just the beginning. Now humanity had to decide what to do with the galaxy they had conquered. The council was dead, but their empire remained. Hundreds of species looked to humanity for leadership, while others plotted revenge. The galaxy would never be the same. The age of the council was over. The age of humanity had begun. Dr. Lisa Morgan stood in the ruins of the council chambers, looking at the spot where Jake Harrison had died. His sacrifice had not been in vain. Humanity had proven that they would not be slaves to anyone. Rest in peace, Jake, she whispered. We kept our promise. We made them pay. The war was over, but the real work was just beginning. Humanity now ruled the galaxy, and they would make sure that no species ever again threatened human lives. The execution of Jake Harrison had been meant to break humanity's spirit. Instead, it had unleashed their fury upon an unsuspecting galaxy. The council had learned too late that humans were not a species to be trifled with. 6 months after the war ended, President Helen Carter stood on the balcony of the new Terran Command Center. The building had been constructed on the ruins of Nexus Prime, in the exact spot where Jake Harrison had been executed. It was a symbol that humanity would never forget what the Council had done to them. Below her, ships from 100 different species came and went from the station's docking bays. But now they all flew human flags and followed human rules. The galaxy had a new master, and that master was not interested in sharing power. "The morning reports, Madam President," said General Sam Burke, entering the office behind her. He carried a tablet filled with updates from across the human empire. His promotion had been swift after the war ended. Humanity needed experienced leaders to control their new territories. President Carter took the tablet and scanned the information. "How many species have surrendered this week?" 12 more, Sam replied. "Most of them are small colonies that were hiding in remote systems. They're begging for mercy and offering to serve humanity in any way we demand." "And the resistance movements?" Sam's expression darkened. "The Kalari tried to organize an uprising on their homeworld. Admiral Stone's fleet dealt with them yesterday. The planet is now under direct human control." President Carter nodded. The message was always the same: submit to human rule or face complete destruction. Most species had learned this lesson quickly, but some still needed convincing. Dr. Lisa Morgan entered the room carrying her own reports. Her role had changed dramatically since the war. She was no longer studying alien life forms as equals. She was cataloging humanity's new subjects. "The integration programs are proceeding ahead of schedule," she said. "We now have detailed files on over 400 species. Most of them pose no threat to human interests." "What about the ones that do?" President Carter asked. 47 species have been classified as potentially dangerous, Lisa replied, "either because of their technology level or their aggressive nature. I recommend immediate intervention in those cases." President Carter walked to the large window that looked out over the galaxy. Thousands of stars were visible in the distance, and humanity now controlled most of them. It was a view that Jake Harrison had never lived to see. "Any word from the Outer Rim territories?" she asked. General Burke consulted his tablet. "Captain Brooks reports that the final Council holdouts have been eliminated. The entire galaxy is now under human control. Captain Nicole Brooks had been promoted to admiral after her success in the war. She now commanded the largest fleet in galactic history, ensuring that humanity's rule remained unchallenged." "What about the memorial?" President Carter asked. "Construction is complete," Lisa said. "The Jake Harrison Memorial will be dedicated next week. Representatives from every surviving species will be required to attend." The memorial was more than just a tribute to the dead diplomat. It was a reminder to every alien in the galaxy of what happened when humanity was crossed. The massive structure would stand for thousands of years, making sure that no one ever forgot the price of defying human authority. Tony Wells appeared on the communication screen from his laboratory on Earth. He had been working non-stop since the war ended, reverse engineering alien technology and improving human weapons. "President Carter, the new manufacturing facilities are online," he reported. "We can now produce quantum antimatter weapons at 10 times our previous rate. No species in the galaxy will ever have the firepower to challenge us." This was the key to humanity's continued dominance. Their weapons were so far beyond anything the aliens possessed that resistance was impossible. Even if every surviving species worked together, they could not threaten human rule. Dr. Richard Gray's voice came through another communication channel. "The planetary defense grids are complete. Earth and all major human colonies are now protected by quantum barrier systems. We're essentially invulnerable to attack." President Carter smiled. Humanity had learned from the Council's mistakes. They would not become complacent or allow potential threats to develop. Any species that showed signs of technological advancement beyond approved limits would be immediately suppressed. What about the labor assignments? She asked. General Burke pulled up another file. The aquatic Delphians are mining rare metals from underwater deposits. The Shard people are manufacturing computer components. The Wanderers are handling transportation between star systems. Every species has been given a role in serving humanity's needs. This was the new order. Aliens existed to serve human interests. They provided raw materials, manufactured goods, and manual labor. In return, humanity allowed them to continue existing. Admiral Frank Stone appeared on the main communication screen from his flagship. His daughter Amy stood beside him, now a colonel in the human forces. The rescue of the prisoners had been a personal victory for the Stone family. The enforcement fleets are in position, Admiral Stone reported. Any species that steps out of line will be dealt with immediately. We've learned that mercy is seen as weakness by these aliens. President Carter nodded. What about the education? Programs? All alien children are now required to learn human history and culture, Amy Stone replied. They're being taught that humanity saved the galaxy from the chaos of the Council period. In a generation or two, they'll be grateful for human rule. This was perhaps the most important part of the new order. By controlling education, humanity could ensure that future generations of aliens would accept their place in the human empire without. QUESTION Dr. Elena Price entered the room with her intelligence reports. Our monitoring systems are detecting some underground resistance movements. Nothing serious, but we should keep watching them. Eliminate them, President Carter said without hesitation. We can't allow any organized opposition to develop. The room fell quiet for a moment. Everyone present understood what they had built. This was not the peaceful galactic community that Jake Harrison had hoped for. This was an empire based on fear and absolute power, but it was also the only way to ensure that humanity would never again face the threat of extinction. The Council had tried to wipe out the human race, and they had paid the ultimate price for that mistake. President Carter walked to the center of the room, where a holographic display showed the entire galaxy. Human ships patrolled every system. Human governors controlled every world. Human law was the only law that mattered. Jake Harrison died believing in peaceful coexistence, she said to the assembled leaders. The aliens proved that such beliefs were naive. They showed us that in this galaxy, you either rule or you serve. There is no middle ground. She touched a control, and the display zoomed in on Earth, humanity's blue and green homeworld. We will never again be vulnerable. We will never again trust alien promises. We will rule this galaxy with an iron fist, and we will make sure that every species understands the consequences of threatening humanity. The dedication ceremony for the Jake Harrison Memorial took place 1 week later. Representatives from every surviving species were forced to attend. They stood in silence as President Carter spoke about the diplomat's life and death. Jake Harrison came to the galaxy seeking friendship, she told the assembled crowd. He was murdered for offering peace. His death taught humanity a valuable lesson. The galaxy respects only strength. The memorial itself was a towering structure made of quantum crystallized metal that would last forever. At its base was a simple inscription, Commander Jake Harrison. His death was not in vain. As the ceremony ended and the alien representatives filed away, President Carter remained standing before the memorial. The galaxy was quiet now, subdued under human rule. There were no more wars, no more chaos, no more threats to human safety, but there was also no more freedom for anyone except humanity. The price of human security had been the enslavement of an entire galaxy. Jake Harrison had dreamed of a better future, but his death had created something else entirely. Humanity had won the ultimate victory, but in doing so, they had become the very thing they had once feared, the masters of a galactic empire built on conquest and fear. The galaxy would remember Jake Harrison's name forever, but not for the reasons he would have wanted. He had become the symbol of humanity's transformation from hopeful explorers to ruthless conquerors. And in the end, perhaps that was exactly what the galaxy deserved.